Dr. Mikala Albertson. Thanks for coming back on the Compared to You podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Me too, because this is a topic I've been wanting to tackle for a while. And I tell you what inspired me most recently, keeping confidentiality intact. I had a client who is in the midlife range of life. And she said to me, just quite innocently, do you think my hormones could have something to do with this? And I was like, yes, I do. And I'm so glad you just asked that question because I think we don't ask that question enough, right? We like look in the mirror or we look at the scale and we blame our bodies and, like my thoughts are here because this is what my body looks like or how I perceive my body to look, those kind of things. And we forget about hormones.
Yeah.
So today, what I want to do is I want to talk about hormones like the whole way through. Like, let's talk about when we're younger, how the hormones affect body image issues then. Let's talk about just hormonal fluctuations during the month. I mean, I think every woman listening understands that there's 1 week a month when you're just probably not going to be happy with your body. And
Yep.
there's
Yep.
another week where you're like, hey, doing pretty good. Right.
About.
Right. So, and then I definitely want to get into perimenopause, menopause, and I don't know, maybe there's hope for
Yeah.
old age when the hormones settle, that body image issues settle a little bit more too. So I'm excited for our conversation today. So,
Yeah. I
so
think that's
let's
true.
let's jump in. Okay. So medically speaking, the hormone rush comes 12, 13, 14. Like,
Mhm.
what's going on and how is that affecting a teen girl's perception of her body? I mean, her
Yeah.
body's changing, right?
I think it's a combination of factors. I think suddenly we're being marketed to a little bit
That's true.
and we're sort of imbibing all these messages that are coming at us. And so that little thought is already percolating in the back of our mind about how we're supposed to look and what healthy is and what's beautiful. And we're being sold all these things to make us look beautiful, right?
Right.
And kind of fit this ideal that's out there. So I think that's there. I have a daughter who's 8, turning 9 this summer, and I'm already noticing that she is aware of some of those messages. But is not going through those hormonal fluctuations. And so she feels great about her body and she's very
Mhm.
confident. She dresses confidently and she doesn't really make negative comments about
Mhm.
herself. And then I think as our hormones fluctuate, and let's use that word
Mhm.
probably throughout this whole conversation,
Mhm.
um, I think some of those thoughts begin to change and we kind of get this negative little voice. And I
Mhm.
don't know why it comes with those fluctuations, but I think that it comes. And we
Yeah.
start to place this blame, I think,
Mhm.
on ourselves. So in puberty, it is marked by hormonal chaos, right? Our ovaries are beginning to practice. They are making estrogen and progesterone, but they're not great at it right away. And
Mhm.
so some months we may have what looks like a cycle once cycles begin, and some months we don't. And there's just a lot of up and down that's going on there while our body's sort of figuring it out, right? And we still do have a lot of fluctuations in a normal menstrual cycle, but it's not predictable when we're in that puberty time.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so along with that come kind of those negative thoughts about, oh, my body and what it looks like, and why don't I look like her? And I should probably be thinner, and I'm not matching that ideal.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I mean, basically, this is my when we were homeschooling, this is my homeschool mom definition. But like hormones are messengers, right?
Yes. Hmm.
So like give more color to my homeschool mom
Yeah.
definition.
No, that is the definition. If you looked up the definition of a hormone, they would say they are chemical messengers in the body. And so most of the time, we have areas in the brain that are telling different parts of our body to do things. And so the endocrine system involves our brain, and then other organs. In our reproductive system, it's our ovaries and our uterus and those kinds of things. But also, it could be our adrenal glands or
Mm.
other glands in the body, our thyroid. So, our brain is kind of the control center, and it's sending hormones to tell these other organs to do things. And then those organs make their own hormones to send out more messaging. And it operates on a feedback loop. And so our brain tells our ovaries to start making estrogen and progesterone. They do. The level of estrogen and progesterone in the body feeds back to the brain and says, oh, all the levels are good, or oh, things are a little bit high. And it sort of is this checks and balances
Mhm.
system. And so when we have disorders or irregularities there, it could be something going on in the brain, it could be something going on in our ovaries or those other glands. Everything sort of is in conversation with itself.
Mm.
And then on top of that, we have receptors throughout our other organs. Maybe they aren't endocrine organs, they don't make their own hormones, but they have receptors for those hormones. And so they're receiving those signals and messages, and then they're doing what they're supposed to do. We have estrogen receptors throughout our body in almost every organ system, which is why when we have these fluctuations or our hormones seem a little bit off or something, we can have a variety of symptoms that come along with that.
So generally, okay, I get so confused. Mikala, it's like I try to keep it straight, but I get so confused. But I've paid attention to like cycle syncing stuff, which is kind of becoming a newer thing. And
Mhm.
I really think there's something to that. I did an episode on it, oh, I don't know, probably a year ago. But that's kind of, I'm like, I wish I had known that. And
Yeah.
so so we have different hormone levels at different points in our cycle. I think most people know that. But just recognizing, like, as someone who struggles with body image and even food to a certain degree, right? Like, being able to give yourself the grace for, like, oh no, PMS week, I'm going to be hungrier, right? Can you just kind of talk through, like, what that looks like?
Yeah. Yes, I think that's very important. And I have a book out right now that speaks specifically to midlife and sort of that perimenopause time. Mm. And in it, I go through the menstrual cycle and I have the little graph there that shows what estrogen is doing, what progesterone is doing, and what those hormones from the brain are doing at the same time to tell the ovaries what to do. And so it's this graph with these big waves throughout the menstrual cycle. And then I also go through day by day and what you can expect,
Mm.
what maybe your brain is thinking and telling you. And I did that not by any magical research or anything. I mean, I think it's there, but mostly I was talking about my own experience when
Uh-huh.
I was like, day one, your period starts. You may be feeling this. And then I give some insight for spouses as well. I've had a lot of feedback from that, and people are like, wow, you really nailed that. That is it.
Yeah.
And so we're feeling very different at different times during our cycle, during the follicular phase, the luteal phase, in those few days before our period. And that's pretty consistent. And I do think so. Cycle syncing is something like, I don't want it to be limiting, like
Mhm.
you shouldn't do these things during this time of your period, or you're not, you won't be good at this during this time of your cycle. I think it's just meant to be an awareness. And the older I get and the more in sync I think I get with my body, I am aware of those things and like, oh yeah, this will be a good week for that because I'm feeling more creative and I'm feeling more open and I'm a little bit more motivated and I get more things done. And then later in the cycle, when I'm in that sort of 3 to 5 days or so before my period, it's like, maybe let's not schedule big things then. Let's just be aware that I'm going to be a little bit more tired. I might be a little bit more irritable. I am, in fact, more hungry.
Mm.
And to just call it what it is and allow for all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because I think, especially for women that are trying really hard. Right. Well, I
Hmm.
mean, a lot of us try really hard.
I
Right. That's
think we
just
all do.
blanketly, right? We're trying really hard, but specifically in this area, like women listening to this show or reading my books, hopefully reading your book too, but they're trying so hard to not be obsessed with body image stuff, to be freer with food, and to understand that there might be 1 week, 5 days every month where you're going to feel like you've backtracked, like you're
Sure.
losing the battle. And that might have nothing to do with your actual progress, with your actual freedom. It may just be hormones. Isn't that right?
Right. And there are some things we can control and some things we can't. There's lots of things we can do to help
Yeah.
kind of through that time, but we're not going to change that
Yeah.
overarching feeling, I think. My husband is now kind of on board with that as well. And I think I'll be like, honey, I call it the pit when I'm going into that 5 days before my period. And I'm like, I can feel myself going into the pit. And I have described to him that it is just this feeling of, and this is maybe dramatic, but like self-loathing
Mhm.
almost. Like I didn't even do anything different. Everything
Mhm.
is just the same, but I just feel like the biggest loser right
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah.
it's just there. It is
Mhm.
just the feeling. And then I sort of emerge from the pit and come out and think, I don't know, sorry about that. Like just I'm fine now. And I, I think it's been helpful for us to be in communication there. And I think it's been helpful for him to understand and for me to put some words to it. The pit and self-loathing is like, well,
Yes.
wow, that feels pretty bad. And so we do take out sometimes one of those days, or, our expectations have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And that isn't a failure or that I'm not working hard during that time. It is my hormones.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So long before cycle syncing or the cycle apps existed, because I think when my husband and I started dating, we had flip phones. I don't
Yeah.
think we could text then, but early on, and I mean, he has a sister, but early on, he figured out that there would be more arguments right before. And so he started marking his calendar. And I used to kind of be like embarrassed slash like, why do you want to write it off to this? Like, I have legitimate concerns. Like, this is a legitimate argument we're having. Don't write it off. Don't ask me if I'm about to start my period. And yet he was right.
Yeah.
All
Hasn't that
right.
been all of us? Well, I think there has been this little bit of shame around all of that, and that
Yeah.
isn't our fault either. And we don't want to admit that because of that shame.
Right.
There was a diagnosis out there of hysteria. And
Mhm.
so anything, I think now we would say, oh, maybe that's a hormone issue, or, this is part
Mhm.
of normal. PMS or PMDD, which is premenstrual
Mhm.
dysphoric disorder, the severe PMS, or even thyroid issues or any symptoms of perimenopause, these very real things that are happening for women. There was this like big diagnosis of hysteria.
Yeah.
And so that idea of the hysterical woman, it just feels bad
Yeah.
for us, I think. And so we carry that shame forward instead of
Mhm.
saying, yep, this is where I am right now, and this
Yeah.
is what my hormones are doing and how I'm feeling.
Right.
It doesn't it's still legitimate. Those
Right.
feelings are still legitimate.
Right. But I think, yeah, to your point, right? Like knowing what they are or where they're coming from, right? And again, like it might be 80-20. Like there might have been a legitimate argument that needed to happen. I don't know. But
Sure.
but like just the way I approached it and stuff, but knowing what was under it, I think that really does help the shame, right? Because it's like, okay. I can see what's going on here. But you said hysteria. And I just read this. I don't think I read it in your book. Maybe it's in your book, though. Like, I just read this recently. Like, it never occurred to me that the HYST prefix sounds a lot like when you get a hysterectomy. Like, it never occurred to me that there was that like female organ connection there.
I think that is the root word. The definition of hysteria long ago, when that was slapped on all women who were having any issue, basically,
Yeah.
it stood for the a wandering womb. And so it
Mm.
was like, oh, your uterus is wandering throughout your body and causing these brain symptoms and whatever. And so when I read about it now, it's funny. And also, I just feel for all the women who weren't listened to
Right.
and weren't heard and were given this. And some of the treatments for it were just ridiculous,
Mm.
and I think there was so much shame
Yeah.
around that
Yeah.
diagnosis. So now that we're talking
Interesting.
about hormones a little bit more, and we have some real diagnoses and words to put to it, I'm hoping that it gets rid of some of the shame.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it should be a good day.
Yeah.
We're seeing things for what they are. And I shared this on the show before, but I've noticed as I progressed through my 40s, so I turned 50 last summer,
Mhm.
things got worse. Like,
Yeah.
of course, like chaotic cycles. I think I was down to like 19 days at one point, which was super fun to have a period
Ah,
every 19 days.
yeah.
But or it's like my husband's like, is this before your period? I'm like, every week is before my period or on my period now, it feels
Yeah.
like.
I have a
But
window of 2 days, two
right,
good days.
exactly. Find my good day. I dare you. Um, but I noticed from a body image perspective, and like, I still don't really know. I didn't get out my measuring tape, but it felt like there were like 3 days or so before my period started where my legs looked like they had doubled in size. And then if I could just ride out those 3 days, then a
Yep.
day or two after my period, I look down and be like, oh, I think they're normal again.
Yeah.
He still doesn't know. Was that like a mental or did they really swell? I don't know. You're thinking
Yeah.
something. Hit
No,
me.
I think it's both. I think we're more aware and we're not as kind to ourselves during that time, but I do definitely think that with those hormonal changes comes some fluctuation in weight. Even just in those couple of days, we hold on to a lot more water. And so I don't know this, so I probably shouldn't say this aloud, or is this a real study? But I do think like how much we're carrying in our belly, we do get bloated. How
Mhm,
often do you hear women say, I just feel so bloated? And
mhm.
we do. We hold on to more water during that time. And so it comes out on the scale if we're stepping on the scale still, or if we would actually measure our waistband, or maybe our pants fit a little bit different. And then once our period starts and the hormones sort of go back to their next fluctuation, then it goes away. And so it's a
Yeah.
little bit of both. We're more aware or maybe more critical, but there are very real changes happening also related to hormones in our
Yeah.
bodies.
Yeah. And so I think for the woman listening today, right, if you're there, right, it's and maybe you haven't even noticed that it's every month. Maybe this is a call or an invitation to start to pay more attention to it. I use an app called MyFlow. Um,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of apps out there. I don't know. Do you use any of those or
I
recommend any of
don't
those?
use one. I think they're all really similar, and I think it sometimes is nice to be able to track those changes. I feel like I've always been really aware of my own body, and so
Uh-huh.
I can almost just tell just by different things that are happening,
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at in my cycle. I've been very lucky in that way to have really regular menstrual periods, and so I can sort of track things myself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I feel like I lose time somehow. I'm like, wait, oh,
yeah,
what month is it? What day is it?
sure.
So the app has really helped me, but just to like even prepare myself, like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. Just even like saying to myself, okay, next week, yep, like plan on wearing my comfortable skirts or like just knowing, okay, next week there, there may be some struggles around how I feel because of, like you mentioned, the bloating or and because isn't it like you can fluctuate up to 10 pounds, I think I read
Yeah.
somewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
10
More
pounds.
commonly, it's 3 to 5 pounds-ish, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah, that would be if that's the average, there are some women who have more.
Yeah. So I mean, just being real about that and not beating yourself up for it or considering it failure or setback, but just understanding that I think is super helpful. Okay, let's I tell you, will you come back? Because we're out of time for today. Will you come back and let's talk about perimenopause
Yes.
and maybe like this hope for what's beyond that? Does that
What's
sound good?
beyond? I think there is hope, and I would love to come back.
And tell us just quickly as we end this episode, tell us your book and where everyone can connect with you.
Yes. So my book is called Everything I Wish I Could Tell You About Midlife. It's a woman's guide to health in the body you actually have. So how do we take care of these bodies that we have in the best way that we can through this midlife time? I've got chapters on all of it, perimenopause is in there, but also we talk about sex and sleep and the thyroid and preventive health. And then there's a lot of just storytelling in there as well. I think I learn best through stories. And so some of those stories are mine, some are from patients or friends. And it came out in October. It's available really anywhere books are sold. You can find it on Amazon. It's always on sale if you go through the publisher. So if you would go through Baker Book House, they have a good discount there. And you can find me over on my website. It's MikalaAlbertsonMD.com.
Wonderful. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes so everyone can spell
Thanks
it
so much.
right. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Let's come back and talk about perimenopause and beyond. I'm glad you're here for it. Thank you for watching or listening today. I hope something today has helped you stop comparing and start living. Bye bye.